pictures.
Okay, and we're going to try to wrap up the 2 consent calendar items. So, Tad, you had pulled item D6. Thanks for being patient.
Good afternoon. Oh, damn near. This is kind of, do I think this is bull? Yeah, I think this is bull, Jimmy. Supervisor Neely's now gone. Where's the head of the department we're fixing to talk about? Well, they went too. Everybody just runs off. This is item D6, the 10th item on the agenda. We've already done the 20th item on the agenda. You know, and I think you're playing games here, and it's bull. It is bull. But let's get to this item. This item is an agreement between the probation department and a place called Bar O Boys Camp. Now, Bar O's Boy Camp is a internment camp for children. They take children as young as 13 years old. That's terrible that we're putting 13-year-olds in jails like this. But what's even worse is it's not even in our county. It's in Del Norte County. We're taking children from our county, shipping them to other counties. This is terrible. This is outrageous. And then on top of that, it's a forced labor / boot camp. Okay? Their children have died there. Children have literally been worked to death. But what's even more outrageous is they exploit labor. When we were looking at our Spartine, pay attention, Jimmy. When we were looking at our Spartine thing,
I will pay attention.
Well, you do pay attention. I'm speaking right now, and your job is to listen to me. That's what you get $90,000 a year for. Maybe we should get some prison laborers to come in here and do this job. That would be free.
First, it is not $90,000, but you have the floor.
Okay, $86,432, whatever. When we were watching Spartane, they showed the Spartane eradication. Those people in those orange jumpsuits were not paid people or volunteers out doing that. They were forced prison labor. And that's what this child's camp does. This child camp gets contracts with the forest department. We pay them $3,300 per child per month.
1 minute.
Okay, Jimmy. We pay them, and I could have more time if you stopped interrupting me, Mr. Smith. Okay, we pay $3,300 a month to have these children incarcerated. Okay, then we force them, as young as 13 years old, to go out and do forced slave labor. We could pay those kids just out of the $3,300, $20 an hour. You take the money that the forest department is paying this corporate prison. On top of that, we could pay them $30 or $40 an hour. But instead, we're interning them and forcing them to work for free. And this is wrong, and we have to stop signing these kind of agreements. We have to stop thinking that this is somehow rehabilitating children when all it is doing is exploiting. Those people you see in the Caltrans trucks in the orange suits out on the freeways, those are slave laborers. Those people you see in the
wrap it up.
CCR, would you stop interrupting me, Mr. Smith? I have a right to speak to this council, and if you keep interrupting me, I can't get my point across. So you just hold on it, sit on it, tell me when I'm done, cut off my microphone or what the hell ever, but stop interrupting me. Okay, you played this game, you made me sit here and wait until 12 o'clock in the afternoon to take an item that should have been voted on at 9:15 this morning. Okay, we sat here and we heard all kinds of...
Please have a seat.
We heard all kinds of...
Please have a seat.
You've used your time. Stories from all you little people about this cool thing and that thing. I have a right to talk about this. You keep interrupting me, and you will not let me talk about it. This is wrong. Okay, I'll be back again and again and again. You know I will, Jimmy. You know you're not going to beat me with your talking over me, interrupting me, and trying to discredit what I'm saying. The point is, you people are enslaving children.
Take your seat.
Should be held responsible for it.
Jeff, you asked for... So, item D10, Jeff, you asked?
Yeah, I will make a comment on the last item, and I will say it is exploitation. You know, it is child labor. You know, so you got to look in your heart. As far as D10, the GOB measure that was passed by a very, very narrow margin. And I just want to discuss a few things. First off, the proposal that was drafted together by district personnel was done before the economic and the real estate market meltdown. So the figures that were put into the calculations to come up with the bond to secure the amounts of money and the payback period don't figure out anymore, because we're going now through a time where there's foreclosures, which lowers the value of any properties up in that school district zone where homes are going to be foreclosed on. It also doesn't take into account just the regular market loss value of something that has been built but wasn't sold and still on the market and is not going down. Now, obviously, the taxes will be based on the $29.90 per 100,000, and it's not realized until that transaction. But the problem is we are going to have a lot of devaluations on properties. So the figures that were based before on old figures are not now based on new figures. And that raises the concern of, is there going to be a 40-year payback, a 45-year, or 50-year payback? Now, in the packet, under a couple of the sections, I looked at Section 3.03, Section 4.01, 4.05, 4.06, and 4.07. And under 3.03, there was a statement of the Board of Supervisors is obligated and shall levy an ad valorem tax upon all property within the district subject to taxation without limitation of rate or amount. Now, that got me thinking, does that mean that if the figures that were presented before the vote and before the economic and real estate meltdown, does that mean that the board can come in, usurp the figures, and then actually coordinate with the district to increase the $29.90 per 100,000 to, let's say, $34.90 per 100,000? Or is it only distinctly with the payback responsibilities with the bond holder and the bond payee, I guess you'd say? And is it only interest, or is it both principal? So I'm just a little confused on that, and just wanted to understand that, are the rates going to go up or not because the figures don't work out? Then we know that California's bond structure is just terrible. The credit rating's terrible. So there may not be competitiveness in the bond market to attain a favorable percentage rate bond. So then it gets into, well, then if that's the case, then the district superintendent can negotiate a contract to establish through a certain procedure a bond contract. And that got me a little bit thinking about, well, if the district put out these figures from prior to all this meltdown, then how are we going to know that the figures being negotiated just by the superintendent is going to work out? And this all comes back to the responsibility and liability sections that were in the paperwork, because in one section, I believe it was 4.05. I may have to correct myself on that, but the board is taking on certain responsibilities, and it is said that you are being made aware of all the information, and that essentially it's your responsibility to understand all the information. But then you get into the 4.07 indemnification of the county, and it's kind of like a conundrum where you're not taking on liability for some inaction. So if the board isn't fully aware of what's going on, which you're previously stating as your responsibility, but then you're signing off on yourself with indemnification for any inaction, I just am bringing this attention to hope that you all understand that this process with this measure was far from transparent, especially when the parent company, Zion Financial Services or something like that, and then K&N Consultants were actually paying contributions to this campaign, although they kind of worded it to where it was kind of maneuvered around FPPC rules. So it really comes down to financial solvency and making sure that the bond actually works out for the 40 years based on the terms. And as I have already mentioned, it doesn't. And so we're talking about yesterday and today, and they're not the same day, especially when it pans out when you crunch mathematics. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tev. Daniel, these actually are both items, D6 and D10.
Yes, and I agree with Tad. It's your discretion. My name is Daniel Pierce, by the way, to